Hi, and welcome to Movie Sprints. Today I will explain a horror film from 2009, titled Drag Me to Hell. Warning, spoilers ahead. Let's dive right in. In Pasadena, California. In 1969, a young Mexican couple rushed to the home of a psychic medium, Sean Sandina, to save their son. Their son had stolen a necklace from a group of gypsies 3 days before. And since then, he has been complaining of seeing and hearing things in horror. Sandina tries to help the boy in a seance, but just then an evil spirit enters the house and goes after the boy. Sandina and the boy's parents watch in horror as the boy is thrown from the balcony by an unseen force. He is then pulled into hell by demonic hands. The psychic is taken aback and vows that she will meet this demon again one day. 40 years later, we see Christine Brown, a loan officer at a local bank. She is working in her office and desperately hopes to be promoted to assistant manager. Christine's boss, Mr. Jacks, tells her that the position would either go to her or the new guy, Stu Rubin. He advises her that she needs to demonstrate that she can make tough decisions when she needs to. On her lunch break, Christine visits her boyfriend, Professor Clay Dalton, in his office. Christine gives Dalton a rare coin she found at the office in circulation. Clay is delighted and puts it in an envelope and puts it in his bag. Then Christine returns to work and is shocked to see Stu playing dirty by bribing Mr. Jacks with Lakers tickets. Later that day, an elderly gypsy woman, Mrs. Sylvia Ganush, comes to Christine asking for a third extension on her mortgage because she is struggling with economic problems due to an illness. To prove herself to Mr. Jacks, Christine, against her better judgment, denies Mrs. Ganush the extension. Out of desperation, Mrs. Ganush prostrates herself before Christine, begging her to save her home. Christine panics and shoves the woman away while calling for security. The old woman feels humiliated and angry at Christine for shaming her in public. She tries to assault Christine as security guards escort Mrs. Ganush out. Mr. Jacks compliments Christine on how she handled the situation and implies that if she can close another big loan, the assistant manager position will be hers. When she walks out after work, Christine sees Mrs. Ganush's car parked right across from her own. She gets in her car and Mrs. Ganush's scarf is blown onto the windshield, freaking Christine out. Christine turns around to follow the scarf and sees Mrs. Ganush behind her. Mrs. Ganush attacks and Christine is able to pick up a stapler and stamp it into her head and eyelid. Christine then starts the car and slams it in high speed, causing Sylvia's teeth to fall out. She begins to gnaw at Christine's chin and the two fight and struggle before Christine is able to lock Ganush outside of her car. Ganush breaks the window with a stone block and drags Christine out. Instead of attacking her, Ganush takes a button from Christine's coat and mutters a spell, placing a curse on Christine before handing back the button. She says, Christine, that soon it would be you who comes begging to me. Later, the police arrive to investigate the incident and Clay arrives to drive her home. On the way, Christine hears a strange whispering and decides she wants to get her fortune told. Clay is skeptical of the fortune teller but goes in when Christine insists. The psychic Ram Jass says he'll read her fortune for $60. However, during the reading, Ram is greatly disturbed by the mental appearance of a demon, which makes him end the session. Ram Jass tells them that someone has placed a powerful curse on Christine. Clay drives Christine home and leaves to get something from his office. Alone at home, Christine is baking a cake in her kitchen and playing with her kitten while waiting for Clay. While still baking, all the lights go out and Christine is left alone in the dark. Her gate starts creaking and she sees shadows and a silhouette of a goat's head on the wall. The shadow then throws her into the cabinets, causing minor injuries. Clay arrives home and assumes that Mrs. Ganush followed them and attacked Christine again. However, when she insists that no one attacked her, they contact a psychologist. The psychologist says that it is probably a result of past trauma that she has been having visions. After hearing this, Christine calms down and they go to bed. While she was sleeping, a fly enters inside her mouth, and then she is once again attacked by Ganush, who vomits worms in her mouth. She wakes up screaming, scaring Clay. Christine says it was only a dream and goes to work. At work, Christine is approached by Stu, who wants to learn about the loan guidelines of the branch. As she starts to explain, she is reminded of Mrs. Ganush's visit and begins to yell. Mr. Jacks comes over to calm her down. But Christine gets a bloody nose which begins to spurt uncontrollably, and she covers Mr. Jax in blood. Christine leaves the bank while everyone is left wondering what is going on. When no one is looking, Stu steals the files for the big loan Christine is working on. Christine goes to the house of Mrs. Ganush's granddaughter. Having gotten her address from Ganush's papers, the granddaughter doesn't want to let her in, but Christine says that she wants to meet Mrs. Ganush and make things right. The granddaughter lets her in and tells her to go down the hall to the right. Christine walks in on a bunch of gypsies sitting around eating together and sees that Mrs. Ganush had died. She accidentally falls on the body, which rolls and spews embalming fluid all over her face. Ganush's granddaughter says that what Christine did was wrong and that she deserves everything that is coming for her. Christine goes back to Ram seeking guidance. Ram tells her that the demon coming for her is called the Lamia. He tells her that Ganush cursed the button from Christine's coat and that in 3 days the Lamia will come to take the soul of the person who owns the button. He speculates that a sacrifice to appease the Lamia may be able to convince the demon not to take her soul. He gives her a book on animal sacrifices, but Christine tells her she won't do it. On which Ram says that you will be surprised by what you will be willing to do when the Lamia comes. Later, Christine goes home and is stalked by the shadow of the Lamia. It comes for her and lifts her up in the air leg first and flings her around before throwing her into her dresser. Christine freaks out and grabs a kitchen knife and calls for her kitten, murdering her violently. Christine is burying her dead kitten when Clay arrives. Clay asks why she has blood on her arm, but Christine shrugs it off and tells Clay that everything is fine now. Clay takes Christine to his parents' house. Christine has baked a harvest cake for them. They sit for dinner and Christine is almost managing to impress Clay's parents by showing that she is a career-oriented girl and has the best interests of Clay at heart. The group enjoys the cake while Christine starts seeing an eyeball in her piece of the cake. She stabs it and it bleeds and she fakes putting a piece of cake into her mouth to put on a show. But she then coughs up the fly from her dream. This disgusts Clay's parents, who think the cake has flies in it. To make matters worse, the Lamia starts to bang on the door, causing Christine to freak out. She yells out loud, startling everybody. After coming to her senses, she leaves and Clay tries to follow, but his mother tells him not to go after her because she is a mentally sick person. Christine consults Ram Jas again, who tells her that there is one person who can help her fight the Lamia, but that this person will only do so for $10,000. She goes to Mr. Jax to ask for a $10,000 advance on the assistant manager position. But Mr. Jax tells her that the loan she was working on fell through since another bank was able to undercut them. He tells her he will have to investigate and then gives the assistant manager position to Stu. Christine leaves the office angrily and goes home. She takes everything she owns of value to sell, but only comes up with $3,500. Later, Clay arrives to find her eating ice cream in her kitchen. He tells her that the second he knew he loved her, he swore he'd do anything to protect her, and so he has already paid the $10,000 to Ram Jas. Clay drives her to the house of Sean Sandina, who is now a slightly old lady. Sean wants to host a seance to draw the spirit into the physical realm in order to kill it. Sean's assistant brings a goat into the room so that they can force the Lamia into it. She tells Christine that once she enters trance and is possessed, Christine must put her hand on the goat to draw the Lamia out. Sean, Ram, Christine and the assistant begin the seance. They use an incantation to call upon the demon, but instead summon a group of lost souls. Sean banishes them for realizing the Lamia is coming. The Lamia possesses Sean and addresses the group. It tells them it will take Christine to hell, where it will feast on her soul. Sensing an opportunity, Christine grabs Sean's hand and forces it onto the goat. The Lamia gets angry and starts screaming. The assistant tries to use a machete to kill the Lamia, but the Lamia moves. The machete misses and the Lamia bites the assistant. Christine goes to help the assistant, but by then the Lamia has entered the assistant's body. It starts mocking Christine and attacking all present. It summons flames and dances over the table. It tells Christine it doesn't want her cat, and draws the kitten she had killed out of its mouth and throws it at her. Sean breaks out of her trance and uses a powerful incantation to banish the Lamia from the seance. Everything seems to return back to normal, but Sandina collapses and dies immediately after. Although Christine is happy that the medium could finally beat the Lamia before dying, but Ram tells her that the curse wasn't lifted yet and that the Lamia had only been temporarily banished. Sean's death proves that nothing can stop the Lamia. Ram tells her that the Lamia is coming for the owner of the button and that her last hope is to gift it to someone else so that the person receiving the button is dragged to hell in her place. He takes out an envelope and has the button sealed in it. The reason Ram didn't tell her this earlier was because he didn't want to be her accomplice in sending someone to hell. Christine gets in Clay's car and tells him it's over. They almost hit an old man, and the old man tells Christine that she's going to hell. Christine drops the envelope with the button, and Clayton's bag opens and spills his papers over her envelope. Christine freaks when she can't find it, but then finds the envelope. Clay drops her off at home and tells her to meet him at the train station so they can go for a vacation. After this, Christine goes to an all-night diner and drinks a ton of caffeine and struggles over whom to give the button to. She calls Stu and tells him to meet her. Otherwise, she'll tell Mr. Jacks that Stu gave her loan papers to the other bank. He meets her and begs her not to tell Mr. Jacks. She is about to give him the button but decides against her decision. Christine then has an idea and asks Ram if the cursed object can be transferred to the dead. Ram consults his books and tells her yes, maybe it could be done. Christine is driving to the cemetery when Ganush's handkerchief shows up again and attempts to choke her. She finally reaches the cemetery and digs up Ganush's grave. She takes the envelope, makes a formal offering, and shoves it down Ganush's throat. Just then the rain starts to fill the grave with mud and Christine is unable to escape from it. She almost drowns, but somehow she makes it through. It's a new morning. The sun has just come up and Christine has finally been rid of the button. She has a warm bath, gets ready, and goes to meet Clay at Los Angeles Union Station. She is finally going on vacation to spend a relaxing weekend in Santa Barbara. She gets herself a beautiful new coat and walks up to Clay. Clay is on the platform checking his ring box, mentally prepping for a proposal. He notes the new coat and asks Christine what happened to her old one. Christine tells him she threw it out because of all that had happened. Clay tells her that it's unfortunate as he found its button in his car, and gives her the envelope with the button in it. Turns out, when she had dropped it in his car the night before, she accidentally picked up the other envelope, one that contained the rare coin she had given to Clay. Horrified, Christine panics and walks backwards from Clay and falls onto the train tracks. Clay starts yelling for help, and as the train approaches, the ground starts cracking around her. As Clay looks on, demonic arms begin to pull her down and Christine is brutally dragged away to hell, screaming to Clay for help. As the train roars through, Clay can only watch, frozen in terror, as his girlfriend disappears under the stone track, and the screen fades to dark. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Please like, comment, and share. See you soon.